What this person needs is for their living strength to reconnect with their own stage. This person is closer to someone who was bent but not broken. A lion is not only an animal with great strength, it has the power to protect its territory, protect the group, and maintain its own order. But what appears first in this person is not the strength of a roaring king. It is the warmth of a large body that embraces the group. Even in the harsh storm of homelessness, this person has not completely lost their dignity. Outwardly, however, the side that cared for people first, read the atmosphere first, and held the relationships first may have appeared more often. When we see this person, one question may come up first. Why is this person here? That is how much this person's inner structure still holds normality and resilience. It does not easily overlap with the state of homelessness. Let's look at the core data. The biggest feature of this graph is that there are almost no generally low areas. In particular, the first thing that catches the eye is very high NP. CP is also high. A, FC, AC, and SC are all above average or sufficiently alive. This matters. This person is not someone with only one strong axis. There is warmth. There are standards, there is judgment, there is vitality, there is adaptability. There is also the will for self-reliance. With this kind of structure, this person may have played the role of an older brother figure, a middle manager, or a central person who cared for others in ordinary society. Still, when we read this person's core, we need to notice which ego state stands forward first. In an individual egogram, when a situation arises, the highest ego state is likely to respond first. In that sense, it is more accurate to see this person as someone whose NP stands forward first. CP is also high, but the ego state most likely to move first is NP. So this person's first impression was probably closer to big-hearted than strict. If we describe this person's structure in one sentence, it is this: an older brother figure who cared for the group first and temporarily lost his own place. This person does not look like someone who entered homelessness because inner functions collapsed. Rather, most of the inner voltage is still alive. Because of this, it is more accurate to read this person's homelessness as the impact of a large life event, not as the result of the whole personality. High NP means this person has a strong power to embrace, care for, and accept people. High CP shows that standards and responsibilities sit beneath that warmth. In other words, this person is not simply kind. This is a person who is big-hearted and also has standards. Outwardly, warmth appears first. Underneath it, their own way and pride support the structure. What pushed this person onto the street was likely not a collapse of the inner structure. It was more likely an event and delayed help seeking. This person has almost no low valley. A is above average. FC is alive. AC has not collapsed. SC is high. In other words, this person has reality judgment, vitality for life, the ability to adapt to organizations, and the will to stand up again. But if we look more precisely, when a situation came, this person likely responded first through NP. If someone was struggling, they may have cared for them first. If the atmosphere shook, they may have embraced it first. If a relationship seemed likely to break, they may have accepted it first. Then high CP may have added the language of standards from behind. At times like this, I should take responsibility. I should carry this much. I cannot step back here. Outwardly, this person may have shown warmth first. Inwardly, standards and responsibility may have supported that warmth to the end. If so, what collapsed this person was not coldness or irresponsibility. It was the habit of embracing others first and then trying to take responsibility alone. When a large storm came, such as business failure, debt, economic shock, relational breakdown, or health problems, this person may have been pushed by that storm, but that storm does not seem to have destroyed this person's whole climate. So this case strongly shows not this personality because they are homeless, but even this kind of person can be pushed into homelessness by a specific event. Outwardly, this person was likely to look fairly fine. They may have seemed like someone who cares well for people, like an older brother figure, like someone who speaks with weight while still embracing the other person, and like someone who somehow keeps relationships going when entrusted with them. Even inside the welfare center, this person may not have been simply a user. They may have cared for peers, protected the atmosphere, and comforted someone. That is because high NP is likely to appear first in this person. CP is also high, but it may not have come out sharply right away. Rather, it may have blended into the way this person cared for people and took responsibility. There is one more point to see. A C is slightly higher than FC. This means that, although this person has enough vitality and expressiveness, it is more likely to come out after being adjusted and socially refined, rather than bursting out in a raw form. So this person may have been cheerful and lively, but closer to someone who adjusts expression while considering people and relationships. In other words, the person others most often met may not have been someone who first presented strict standards. They may have met an older brother-like person who always cared first, embraced first, and took responsibility first. But this becomes another trap. The stronger, warmer, and more functional a person looks, the easier it is for people around them to think that person will endure on their own. The person themselves can easily think that way too. Because this person looked big-hearted outwardly, help-seeking may have been delayed even more. If we overlap this structure with life position, this person may lean toward, I'm not okay, you're okay. However, it is more accurate to read the self side not as a strongly broken, I'm not okay, but as a structure that shakes weakly in that direction during crisis. Looking first at the self side, AC is 37 points, slightly higher than FC at 34 points. The difference is not large, but it means that caution and adaptation may come slightly before spontaneity and self-expression. Even if this person looks sufficiently functional in ordinary times, in crisis, they may push themselves in this direction. I should endure a little more. I should not say I am struggling now. I must not shake first. So the self side is difficult to call a strong, I'm not okay, but during crisis it may lean weakly that way. The other person side has a relatively clear, you're okay power alive. This is because NP at 47 points stands ahead of CP at 39 points. This person does not have a structure that completely distrusts the world and people. Rather, they have a strong power to care for people, take responsibility, embrace, and protect relationships. So the other person's side is closer to you're okay than to an aggressive you're not okay. However, this you're okay may not have led to comfortable dependence. It may have worked asymmetrically as, I should care for people, but I should not lean on them. This point is important. This person is not like the dormouse whose self side was first turned off. And this person is not like the border collie who became depleted after giving away almost all of their own share. Rather, basic trust and embrace toward people and relationships are strong, while stricter standards are applied to the self, delaying help-seeking. So what this person needs is not to create self-affirmation from the beginning. They need the experience that asking for help does not collapse dignity. They need the reframing that leaning can also be a strategy. For this person, the word reconnection fits better than rehabilitation. This is because they are closer to a person whose connection was cut off than to a person whose inner circuit is broken. So the priority in this case is not to create deficient functions from scratch. It is to reconnect already living resources to social roles. In that sense, there is not much need to approach this person by unconditionally raising A just because it is the lowest among the 6 ego states. A is already above average and reality judgment is alive. The problem is not that A is absent. It is closer to the possibility that MP comes out first, CP supports it from behind, and A follows later in reality as the role that organizes that structure. There are 3 core points. First, high NP must be redirected so it does not flow only toward others. The power to embrace must become an asset in relationships, not self-destruction, so boundaries must be rebuilt. Second, high CP must be reestablished not as rigidity, but as a principle of return. Standards must be rewritten so that asking for help is also part of responsibility. Third, A must be clearly connected to return planning. This person already has judgment. So instead of growing A from the beginning, the living A should be allowed to balance between NP and CP and create a realistic return plan. What this person needs is not personality correction. They are already warm enough, solid enough, and alive enough. The core is to open a stage and pathway so those strengths can flow back into the field of life. NP should maintain the power to embrace people, but it must be repositioned so it does not flow into self-consumption. CP should maintain principles, but help-seeking must be reframed as part of responsibility. A should turn reality judgment into a concrete return plan. FC should maintain vitality for life as a motive for recovery. AC should be used as execution power to reconnect inside organizations and systems. SC should connect the will for self-reliance to an actual social return plan. For this person, the welfare center is closer to a rest stop or a maintenance station than a treatment center. It is a place to dry the wet mane for a while, calm the breath, set the claws again, and prepare for the next leap. In other words, the core is not teaching this person a new personality. It is reconnecting someone who could originally function well in society to their own stage. This case should not be rushed just because the person looks high functioning. First, do not pressure them towards self-reliance too quickly by saying, with this level, they will leave soon. A structure being intact and a person having sufficiently recovered from the shock of an event are not the same thing. Second, do not help in a way that breaks their pride. For this person, dignity is not simple vanity. It is an important axis that has helped life endure. If that axis is insulted, regression may come before recovery. Third, do not read high standards only as stubbornness. Inside those standards, there are responsibility, pride, and the weight of a way of embracing people for a long time. Fourth, do not mistake caring well for people as immediate recovery. Even during recovery, this person may again enter the older brother role first. That appearance is beautiful, but if it repeats the old way, there is also the risk of taking care of their own share late again. Fifth, do not make help-seeking feel like defeat. For this person, the needed reframing is not depending on others is shameful. It is, this is a strategic choice to stand up again. This person's recovery is likely to appear first, not through the recovery of subtle desires like the dormouse, but through signs that their strength is reconnecting with reality. For example, these changes may appear. They begin to accept receiving help not as shame, but as strategy. They begin to speak again about their own skills, career, and role. Life rhythm and schedule become organized relatively quickly. The statement, I can go out again, becomes connected to a realistic plan. Re-entering systems and organizations is accepted not as humiliation, but as a process of return. They begin to leave a share for themselves while caring for people. They begin to adjust flexibly to reality without abandoning principles. When these changes appear, this person can be seen as moving beyond the stage of merely enduring and entering the stage of preparing for return. The egogram of the big-hearted lion clearly shows that homelessness does not always mean the collapse of the inner structure. This person has great embrace. This person has strong standards. Reality judgment is possible. Vitality is alive. Adaptability remains. The will for self-reliance is also clear. However, in this person's case, among many strengths, NP likely stood forward first. The other ego states may have moved in ways that supported or adjusted it from behind. So the core of this case is reconnection more than deficiency. Rather than asking what is lacking in this person, it is more accurate to first ask where this person's living strength should be reconnected. This person's strength is already very much alive. The problem is that this strength may have flowed first toward embracing people and taking responsibility, while help-seeking and self-recovery were delayed. So the power to embrace must not flow into self-consumption. standards must be re-established, not as pride that blocks help seeking, but as principles of return. A must be used to create a realistic return plan. In other words, what this person needs is not stronger motivation. It is to reconnect already, leaving strength to their own stage, while also moving away from the pattern of taking care of their own share late. So the question needed when reading this case is this: what is needed so that this person's living strength no longer flows in a way that only cares for the self-late? Let me summarize. The core of the big-hearted lion is not creating a new personality. It is reconnecting already living strength to this person's own stage. Recovery begins when help-seeking is accepted, not as defeat, but as strategy. And when the power to embrace standards and judgment are bound again into a structure of return. The important question when reading this case is this: before asking, well, what is lacking in this person? We need to ask, where should this person's living strength be reconnected? And we also need to ask, what is needed so that this strength no longer flows in a way that makes only the self late? When these questions appear, this graph begins to be read not as data of homelessness, but as a blueprint for return.